What a wonderful session, Your Holiness. You have really challenged us. And we have just a few minutes waiting for our panel to get their microphones on, because there weren't enough, you see, we have to change. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share with you a story of another Peace Laureate. You know, the last few days we've had the luxury and the benefit of having so many wonderful Nobel Peace Laureates with us for this Peace Summit, starting with yourself. But I wanted to share with you another story of a Peace Laureate who's Canadian. Canadian Peace Laureate who received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1957, a former Prime Minister of Canada, Lester Pearson. Mm-hmm. And when he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize over 50 years ago, he challenged the world by saying that we needed to seek peace in the world and that it was a task we were doing badly. And here's a quote, and I have to get it right. But he said at that point, "The grim fact is that we prepare for war like precocious giants, and for peace like retarded pygmies." Now we have to forgive him for maybe what we would see today as being politically incorrect. But his words today, I believe, are as relevant as they were 50 years ago. Why is it, Your Holiness, that we spend billions of dollars and huge resources to prepare for war and spend so few dollars and so few resources and so little energy in our education, our research, our inquiry in preparing for peace? If you think about science and the use of science, whether it's quantum mechanics or nuclear physics and the building of weaponry and satellite technology, and I'm all for science, believe me, but where are the arts and the humanities and the understanding that needs to be developed to allow us to know what it means to be compassionate, how to be kind, how to be empathetic? I believe there's a science there, and I think you do too. And I know our panel this morning is going to take up from the 2006 meeting on educating the heart, where you challenged us, just as you did this last panel. You said, we now know why we must do it. We have to get on with how we're going to do it. And I hope today's panel will help us answer the how. So I'd like to introduce our panel.
We met each other in Salt Lake.
Steve. So we're so pleased, Your Holiness, to have 5 incredible intellectual experts with us this morning, and I'm going to give a very brief introduction because I know our audience has already read the précis in the bulletin, but I would like to welcome to my right Stephen Covey,
belongs to the hotel.
Stephen is recognized as one of Time magazine's 25 most influential Americans and is a respected leader, authority, family expert, and author, having written The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Next to Stephen is Adele Diamond. Adele is one of the founders of the field of development cognitive neuroscience and holds the Canada Research Chair Professorship in that field at the University of British Columbia. We're honored to have to my left Mayreed McGuire. Mayreed is a co-recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize in 1976. She was responsible for co-founding the Peace People Northern Ireland that resulted in a number of marches demanding an end to the violence in Northern Ireland. Clyde Hertzman. Clyde is director of the Human Early Learning Partnership, or HELP, at UBC and holds the Canada Research Chair in Population Health and Human Development. And Kimberly Schonert-Reichel. Kim is a former teacher for troubled children and youth and is now a professor in education at UBC. She spent the majority of her academic career conducting research aimed at understanding the ways in which children's empathy and compassion can be cultivated in schools. So perhaps I'd like to start, Your Holiness, in asking you what role you think education might play in helping us prepare for peace.
Then, I'm going to repeat what I already said. Obviously, the violence and wars, I think, from the beginning of human history is part of our history, part of human life. A former president of India, Abdul Kalam, a Muslim, a great scientist, he often used to say the seed of problem is the concept of I and me. So therefore, this violence actually is come the idea we and they, this big sort of demarcation. Then the destruction, destroy of your enemy or them, the victory of we. So that, I think, several thousand years, that concept has been there. Now, firstly, of course, the violence very much related with that. That's the basis, create violence. And secondly, today's world, today's reality, no longer that division, we and they. Economy reasons, global economy reasons, and also environment reasons, and simply the sheer sort of human population. So unless we work together, the future of humanity difficult. So therefore, if you think that today's reality, then war is outdated. Others' problem is our problem. Our problem also their problem. So the 6 billion human beings must work together with sense of we or us. So that's now the new, according to the new reality, we need that kind of sort of concept. So how to bring that? 2 things. Compassion. Compassion, there are 2 levels. One level, compassion. Of course, these things I already mentioned last few days, but then I think here some more people, new people may be here, so therefore may not be so harmful to repeat these things. So it's 2 levels of compassion. One level is more biological factor. That compassion, no need training, no need help of wisdom, spontaneous, like compassion from mother to their children, or compassion or sense of concern of your relatives. At least those relatives, you see, show you positive attitude. Even those relatives, they say the negative attitude, forget. even you see, instead of a sense of concern, of well-being, even you should wish more trouble for them, like that. So these are biological factor and very much oriented about others' attitude. Now, second level of compassion is now beyond that, not oriented the others' attitude. So disregard others' attitude, but still they are human beings. And furthermore, they are sentient beings. Why we love ourselves? Not the reason we kind to ourselves, no. But simply, I want happiness, I do not want suffering. Because of that, they say, I have the right to overcome suffering. So that logical process, the rest of 6 billion human beings, all have same. All do not want suffering, want happiness. So they also deserve, you see, because of that, to achieve happiness. And they're passing through difficulties, we must respond, sense of concern for them. So that is genuine compassion, second level compassion. That compassion, not sort of biased, not oriented attitude, but oriented being itself, to the person or to the sentient being. So that unbiased, that kind of compassion, through training, through reasoning, as I mentioned earlier, today's reality, my future depends on them. So I have to take their interest, ultimately for my own interest, like that. So that's the. Now education now very, very important role in that field. Educate people. Now, what happened? The past century, 20th century, become century of bloodshed, century of war. What happened? And spend a lot of money. Anyway, now nuclear weapon. You see, even just keeping these nuclear weapon, a lot of money required. At the same time, nobody dare to use these weapons. So waste of time. Waste of money, isn't it? If you really, if you really love nuclear weapon, then you should use. If you use nuclear weapon, that's mad, senseless, right? Madness and senseless. So therefore, so I was thinking these lines. Then now time come. We have to get vision, the demilitarized world. And one time, one German professor expressed, now world becomes something like one body. So each government no need foreign ministry and defense ministry. You should treat your neighbor as a sort of domestic sort of part of yourself. I think that's very good. So the very idea, foreign ministry dealing with foreigner, something different, and defense, protect yourself because they may attack you. So this very concept is, I think, outdated concept, like that. So these things through education, through awareness.
Thank you.
Wonderful entree. Want to turn to my education experts here, Clyde and Kim, and ask them, first Clyde, what role do the schools have in educating the heart? And can you give us some examples of things that might be happening? And then Kim, kind of, what's your experience been here in Vancouver and across the province and throughout the world, and what can we help in terms of guiding and moving this agenda of educating the heart forward?
Well, Your Holiness, since you were here the last time, you challenged us to stop talking and start acting. And so over the last few years, we've been trying to mobilize the schools in British Columbia to focus on social and emotional learning and to take seriously educating the human heart. One of the ways that we've been trying to do that is to get the whole education system to recognize that educating the human heart means starting right at the very beginning of life. Because as children develop vision, as they develop hearing and touch and speech, particularly the sensory parts of those, develop connections with the deep, deep structures in the brain that have got to do with whether or not we feel like we belong or whether or not we feel threatened. And so that children who grow up in environments which are threatening, where they see lots of angry faces, where they deal with lots of this kind of touch rather than that kind of touch, and when they're shouted at and so forth, by the time they reach school age, their brains are actually different from children who have grown up in strong, emotionally accepting environments, such that they sense threat where others don't. They see threat where others don't. And that means that there are huge barriers to them becoming compassionate citizens of the sort that you just described. So one of the things that we've done over the last few years is we've worked with all of the kindergarten teachers in this province. So we're talking about several thousand kindergarten teachers when children at age 5, getting them to look at the state of children's development. Are they physically aggressive? Are they empathic and helpful and so forth? And provide that information so that we can actually map out the contours of early social and emotional development for all of the neighborhoods in the province. And we've done this once, twice, 3 times. So we are the first jurisdiction in the world that has thoroughly mapped the state of early social and emotional development. And what we've discovered is that in some neighborhoods in the province, only 2 or 3 or 5% of the children have a worrisome state of emotional development by the time they reach school age. But in other areas, it's 25 or 30%, and it's totally avoidable. And so we are working now in the preschool period with the family strengthening programs and the criteria for quality childcare to get those things embedded early, and then working with people like Kim to transition into schools and mainstream these kind of ideas.
So Kim, how does that transition take place, and what's happening after the children reach school, and the types of experiences that you think might make a difference?
Well, Your Holiness, it's an honor to be here again with you to talk about education of the heart. And one of the things that Clyde talked about is that there could be children who come into school with problems, but we don't want to give up hope and say, well, forget it, they've come kind of damaged. What we know is that schools, as you have said, education can play a powerful role. And one thing in British Columbia, in which we're very lucky, is that the promotion of social and emotional learning is prominent, is part of the goal of education. So in 2001, social responsibility is one of the 4 goals of education in British Columbia, in addition to reading, writing, and math. And the parts of social responsibility that schools promote includes things like contributing to classroom and school community, solving problems in peaceful ways, practicing democratic rights and responsibilities, and valuing diversity and defending human rights. So one thing that has been very easy for us to do, in your last challenge to us, I think you told us just get to work now in 2006 and start doing things, that a lot has happened here. There are many initiatives across the province which really are focusing on educating the hearts of children, and programs that bring in mindful attention awareness, programs for teachers, even a teacher training program now for pre-service teacher education programs to help them learn the strategies to educate the heart of children.
I want to know, as a result of the practice of these sort of education for heart, these things, in the research level, what differences those students who haven't that kind of education, that program, and those students who passing through that kind of education, what differences?
We basically have been doing a lot of research. As you know, science is very important, and we are finding differences in terms of children who receive these programs develop empathy, altruism, compassion, and even do better in school. So we know there's a lot of things that happen by educating the heart and educating the mind together.
Wonderful.
Another form of education, which is families, and the role families might play. And I know, Stephen, you are an expert on that, and maybe you could share with us some of the things that you think the role of the family, the type of education and learning that takes place there in terms of educating the heart.
Well, I think that family is the most fundamental and most important organization in the world. And that's where most of the real fundamental education takes place. So I suggest we have a family of 9, Sandra and I have a family of 9 children and 51 grandchildren. But if you were to ask me what one thing has made the huge difference, it's the development of a family mission statement. And we put it literally on everyone's wrist, or they're put it on their ankle. And the family mission statement, basically, we serve God by serving others. So it gets them into the ethic of service and into the character development of subordinating themselves, me, to the idea of we, what the Dalai Lama just talked about, so that you move from independence to interdependence on a high level of collaboration. So to me, that has been the most significant one single thing that we have done. The second thing is very practical. I finished training Indian chiefs that run Indian nations in North America. That's in Mexico, the United States, and Canada. including First Nations. And after 3 days of training, they gave to me a special gift. It was called an Indian talking stick. It was about this high. They put my name on the backside. They called me Bald Eagle. Even though I did a lot of special blow drying that morning for extra body. Anyway, the idea is very, very simple. And this was taught by the Iroquois Federation to the founding fathers of the United States. The idea is that you always give it first to the other person. And I cannot say anything until you feel understood, which stirs up empathy, empathic listening, so that you get inside your frame of reference, into your mind and into your heart. Did I really understand not only what you said, but how you feel about what you said? And I can't say anything until I have done this. Then you pass it back to me. Now it's my turn to express how I see it and how I feel about it. As this goes back and forth between us, creativity is unleashed. And you come up with third alternative solutions. Not my way, not your way, and not a compromise, but a new way that we have created together. And that automatically begins to develop the spirit of interdependency and collaboration and cooperation and profound respect for other people. And so I teach this wherever I go. This is another form of an Indian talking stick. You could use a pencil, you could use a piece of paper. The object is valuable simply because you do not get it back and cannot express yourself until that person gives it to you, meaning, I feel understood. And both levels of compassion that the Dalai Lama just talked about are developed in this way, through empathic listening and trying to understand deeply what a person says and what they feel about what they say. So we focus a great deal on both developing a mission statement that we all participate in creating. It took us 8 months to create this one. We serve God by serving others. And the basic approach that we use to develop this is the Indian talking stick communication.
Maybe I could ask you, Stephen, to hand the talking stick to Adele. I want to be absolutely certain that we get Adele and May Reed in this conversation, because His Holiness is going to have to leave us very shortly to go and educate the hearts of 16,000 young people in a WE conference. So I want to be absolutely certain that we get both of our other speakers to share with us. And I want to change the focus a little bit to the individual, and how does the individual learn without necessarily going to school or counting on their family. And Adele, you once said that you thought that people who are the happiest are those who make others happy. And I'm wondering if you could share with us some of your ideas about how individuals can achieve that. And then to ask May Reed kind of the same question in terms of how, in terms of what you found through your experiences, how do you draw upon yourself to become compassionate? What do you seek, not from others, but internally? How do you learn internally how to be compassionate and to be joyful and to live in the moment? So, talking stick moving back and forth.
Your Holiness, you'll remember from Dharmasala that I'm very interested in practical, in moving beyond words. And if we want to educate the heart of children, we need to start with us. with you and I, because children learn what they live. It's very nice to tell them things in school, but what they learn are from the examples of the people around them. So we need to start with us. And it doesn't have to be big things. It could be when you leave today, you let another car merge in front of you. Or it could be just saying thank you to somebody in the store who was serving you, or the people cleaning your office. There are any number of things you can do, little things you can do, that teach you, help you and help the child. Now, Your Holiness has said, if you want others to be happy, show them compassion. If you want yourself to be happy, show others compassion. And there's profound wisdom in that, but you often don't realize it unless you experience it. Because before you experience it, you often think it's a zero-sum game. What I give you, I lose. And I have to do a lot to give to you. And once you do it, and you realize how incredibly happy it makes you, just saying hello to a stranger on the street and seeing that person smile at you makes you happy. And so you get so much back from doing that. And I have a proposal for the schools of British Columbia, that we have a competition in each school at the beginning of the year for the children to use their creativity to think outside the box, to think of ways that they could help other people. They could make the world a better place. It could be at the level of class or grade or school. And then all the relevant people, the children, the teachers, the janitors, the people who work in the cafeteria, vote on what they think is the best plan. And then the children do it. They create the possibility of doing this, whether it's helping people across the world or helping in your school. And then at the end of the year, there can be awards for not only the brightest student and the best athlete, but the student who's shown the most kindness, shown the most compassion. And it can come not only from the school, but from the students themselves, where they vote. And I think it can go beyond this, where the province gives awards for this, not only to children, but to adults. And not only to the fancy people who are leading the brigade, but to the no-name people who don't have fancy degrees or fancy positions, but in their everyday life are doing things to make the world a better place. And I think my university, the University of British Columbia, could get in the act and offer a scholarship of $1,000 to any student who's won this award from their school. And I'm going to be quiet to give time.
Your Holiness, in this little ear button, I'm getting very, very significant signals that we need to move along. And I do want to allow Mary to have, if you like, the final word. So Mary, over to you.
We always, Holiness always stresses the need for us to be kind to each other. And really, kindness is the greatest thing and the greatest virtue we can teach our children. Just saying to them going out in the morning, be kind to everyone you meet, because kindness develops compassion. And you see, when we are educating our children, what are we educating them for? Well, I believe human beings are made to love and to be loved. And deep down inside us, we have this energy and this need to be loved, just to be accepted, just for somebody to reach out to smile and accept us. And perhaps the hardest thing for any parent is to accept their child and love their child with the passion exactly where they're at, and not wanting to control and to dominate and to form them into being successful in the world. And this is really this is such an awful temptation to make our kids be like us. You know, every single individual is a new created being with tremendous potential. And our children, the greatest gift we can give them is to allow them to be themselves. Now, we are called to be happy human beings. That's our first calling in life. To be happy, fulfilled, joyful human beings. Wouldn't it be awful to reach old age and never known what it would be to be fully alive? And you know, like any other skill or gift, there are steps to being happy. And after all, we learn how to be the best golfer. We spend hours being the best scientist. How many hours do we spend? And this is not a selfish thing, because if you are not within yourself happy and compassionate and gentle and joyous, you cannot give this to your children or anyone around you. So happiness starts within. And there are steps to happiness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you can be a joyous person. Because we've taught the 3 R's, we never taught our children, or now have we learned in our schooling system, the most important thing. How do we deal with the emotions inside us? The desperate fear, the desperate anxiety, the desperate need to somehow fit into this world. How do we deal with those crucifying emotions which stop us being compassionate? Because when you're in inner pain, it's like having a toothache. You can't reach out to others or compassionate because you're so frightened in here of people who are different, people who are more educated than you, because you are so insecure and lonely in here. The journey is a painful, fearful, lonely journey. And the only way we can help God help the little children coming into such a world, the only way we can help them through that journey is to help them understand that we all have these emotions. We are all afraid. We all worry. We're all anxious. We wonder if we say the wrong word and get embarrassed, will people see that the emperor has no clothes? You know, so I think overcoming these emotions and the education system, starting from the children very young, in the home, to learn to be happy, fulfilled, honest children. And I think it will do it through the education and through the families.